A zombie apocalypse just hit your city. You've got 60 seconds before your neighborhood becomes a flesh-eating free-for-all. But you're going to make every single wrong decision. So today, I'm breaking down the brutal reality of why you wouldn't last a weekend in a zombie-infested city. And trust me, it's not for the reasons you think. Dopamine addict. Let's start with something nobody talks about in zombie movies. Your smartphone addiction is going to get you killed. On average, people check their phones 96 times a day. That's once every 10 minutes during waking hours. Your brain has been rewired to crave those little dopamine hits from notifications, likes, and messages from the buzz. When the apocalypse hits and the cell towers go down, you're not just losing communication. You're going cold turkey from a legitimate chemical addiction. While zombies are freaking out outside, you'll be experiencing withdrawal symptoms that include anxiety, depression, irritability, and most importantly, severely impaired decision-making abilities. Not to mention, you would have these symptoms amplified with an apocalypse anyway, unless you're just that guy. You'll find yourself unconsciously reaching for your dead phone during crucial moments, distracted and unfocused when you need to be most alert. That split second of reaching for your pocket instead of your weapon, that's when the zombie's gonna get you. But this is just one of many reasons, and coming up, we'll see why some of you would die for even dumber reasons, if that's even possible. Unlike starving, which is a surprisingly real danger. Not a farmer. 98% of people couldn't grow enough food to survive even if they had perfect conditions, unlimited time, and a library of farming books. You think you know about farming because you've seen some YouTube videos and maybe kept a houseplant alive for 3 months, but agriculture is insanely complex. Do you know what companion planting is? How to deal with soil pH? When to plant what crops based on your specific climate zone? How to preserve food without refrigeration? The signs of nitrogen deficiency in tomato plants? Even if you somehow get your hands on seeds, you're looking at months before any substantial harvest. And that's assuming you can keep zombies, other humans, and natural disasters away from your crops for an entire growing season. Most crops fail even under ideal conditions when grown by beginners. Let's say you're growing potatoes. Seems simple, right? Wrong. Plant them too early and they'll freeze. Too late and they won't mature before winter. The list goes on. It's pretty much over for your long-term food source. Meanwhile, you're burning 2,000, 3,000 calories a day just trying to survive, and that potato plant might give you 200 calories in 4 months if everything goes perfectly. Gangs, forget zombies for a minute, the real threat is other people, and you're absolutely not prepared for the level of violence that desperate humans are capable of. Within weeks of societal collapse, organized groups will form, and they won't be the friendly community groups you see in movies. These won't be people sitting around campfires making democratic decisions. These will be ruthless organizations led by the most violent and manipulative individuals who rise to power in lawless situations. Think prison hierarchies, not town councils. You know what makes a good gang leader in an apocalypse? Experience with violence, sociopathic tendencies, and the ability to inspire fear. You know what makes a good gang member? Unquestioning loyalty and willingness to do terrible things to survive. Are you prepared to torture someone for information about food caches? Execute other survivors who pose a threat to your group? These groups will have strategies you haven't even considered. They'll use human bait to lure zombies into enemy camps. They'll contaminate water supplies. They'll take hostages from other groups to ensure compliance. They'll use psychological warfare that would make military interrogators uncomfortable. And here's the kicker. Even if you somehow join one of these gangs, your suburban background makes you a liability. Gang leaders eliminate liabilities quickly and efficiently. You're not valuable enough to keep around when resources get scarce, and you're too moral to be trusted with the dirty work that keeps these groups in power. So far, all of this has been manageable if you play it smart and get lucky, but the next one could easily be one of the craziest threats on the list. Need medicine, something that affects way more people than they realize. Medical dependency. Are you wearing glasses or contacts right now? Congratulations. You're operating with a massive survival disadvantage the moment your prescription eyewear breaks or gets lost. Sorry, 4 eyes. But it goes way deeper than vision problems. About 50% of adults take prescription medications regularly. Blood pressure medication, insulin for diabetes, antidepressants, heart medication, thyroid medication, the list goes on. When pharmacies close and supply chains collapse, you've got maybe at most 3 months supply before you run out and your body starts giving up. Take diabetes as an example. There are about 37 million diabetics in the US. Without insulin, type 1 diabetics will die within days to weeks. Type 2 diabetics might last longer, but the stress of survival situations will spike blood sugar levels to dangerous heights. You'll be trying to outrun zombies while your body is essentially poisoning itself. Even seemingly minor medical needs become major problems. Need a CPAP machine for sleep apnea? Good luck getting quality sleep while manually breathing through zombie-filled nights. Have seasonal allergies? That constant sneezing and nasal congestion will compromise your hearing and breathing when stealth is essential for survival. Dental problems will become excruciating without modern dentistry. A simple cavity becomes an abscessed tooth, which becomes a life-threatening infection. Meanwhile, you're trying to fight zombies with half your face swollen and pain that makes it impossible to concentrate. And don't even get me started on mental health medications. Suddenly, stopping antidepressants or anxiety medications doesn't just make you sad. It can cause seizures, suicidal thoughts, and complete psychological breaks that make rational survival decisions impossible. Infrastructure knowledge. You flip a switch and lights turn on. You turn a handle and clean water flows out. You press a button and your house gets warmer. You have absolutely no idea how any of this actually works. And when it all breaks down simultaneously, you'll be completely helpless. The electrical grid isn't just power plants and wires. It's an incredibly complex system that requires constant human intervention to keep running. Power plants need fuel deliveries, maintenance crews, and computerized monitoring systems. When workers stop showing up and supply chains break down, you've got maybe 72 hours before widespread power failure. But losing electricity doesn't just mean no lights. It means no water pumps, so no running water. No fuel pumps, so no gasoline. No refrigeration, so all food spoils within days. No communication systems, so no coordination with other survivors. No medical equipment, so hospitals become death traps instead of healing centers. Water systems are even more complex. That water coming out of your tap has been through multiple treatment facilities, pumping stations, and testing checkpoints. When these systems fail, you're not just without running water. You're surrounded by contaminated water sources that will kill you faster than zombies. You probably think you can just boil water to make it safe, but do you know how long to boil it? What temperature kills different pathogens? How to identify water contaminated with chemicals versus biological threats? How to build a proper filtration system from scavenged materials. Most people can't even change their car's oil, but they think they'll be able to maintain complex survival systems when professional engineers and technicians are all dead or hiding. But we're only at NUV 5. Wait until you see what's coming. You're weak. Can you run a mile without stopping? Carry 50 pounds for more than a few minutes? Go without food for 24 hours and still be able to fight for your life? Survival isn't just about being in decent shape. It's about extreme physical demands that would challenge professional athletes. You'll be carrying heavy packs for miles every day, climbing over obstacles, digging fortifications, moving heavy debris, and doing all of this on minimal food and sleep. Your soft, climate-controlled lifestyle has left you completely unprepared for physical hardship. You get winded walking up 2 flights of stairs, but you think you'll be able to outrun zombies while carrying survival gear? You complain about walking through a parking lot in the rain, but you think you'll handle sleeping outside in winter weather? Even if you're in decent shape now, the physical demands will break you down quickly. Professional soldiers in peak conditions struggle with extended survival situations. Your weekend hiking experience doesn't compare to the non-stop physical stress of apocalypse survival. Joint problems will develop from carrying heavy loads, muscle injuries from unfamiliar physical demands, foot problems from walking long distances in improper footwear, back problems from sleeping on hard surfaces. All of these issues compound until you're essentially disabled, making you easy prey for both zombies and hostile humans. And here's the thing about adrenaline. It makes you feel temporarily superhuman, but when it wears off, you crash hard. After your first zombie encounter, you'll experience an adrenaline crash that leaves you shaky, exhausted, and unable to function properly for hours. Perfect timing for the next wave of threats. Smart zombies. Every zombie movie treats zombies like mindless, shambling idiots who can barely walk in straight lines. But what if that's wrong? What if the virus or whatever causes zombification doesn't destroy intelligence? It just redirects it? Think about it from an evolutionary perspective. A virus or parasite that keeps its host functioning at higher levels would be more successful at spreading. Dumb zombies stumble into traps and get destroyed easily. Smart zombies learn from mistakes, set traps of their own, and adapt their hunting strategies. Imagine zombies that can remember layouts of buildings they've been through before. Zombies that learn to recognize the sound of specific weapons and take cover. Zombies that can coordinate attacks, using some to distract while others flank their prey. Zombies that figure out how to operate simple tools or even vehicles. What if zombies retain muscle memory from their previous lives? A zombie who used to be a mechanic might still know how to hotwire cars. A zombie who was a hunter might still know how to track prey silently. A zombie who was a soldier might retain tactical knowledge about combat and strategy. There's evidence that parasites can modify behavior in incredibly sophisticated ways. The Toxoplasma parasite makes mice attracted to cat urine, essentially making them seek out their predators. The Cordyceps fungus controls ant behavior with precision, making them climb to optimal locations for spore dispersal. A zombie plague caused by an intelligent parasite might create zombies that can plan, problem solve, and learn. They might use human bait to lure survivors into traps. They might learn to mimic human voices to trick people into opening doors. They might even retain enough human knowledge to predict where survivors are likely to hide. All your zombie survival plans assume you're dealing with stupid enemies. If zombies can think and adapt, every strategy you've ever considered becomes obsolete overnight, going insane. Humans are social creatures who need regular interaction with others to maintain mental health. In survival situations, you'll either be completely alone or stuck with a small group under extreme stress. Either scenario is a recipe for severe psychological breakdown. Isolation doesn't just make you sad, it causes actual cognitive decline. Your brain literally shrinks from lack of social stimulation. You'll start having conversations with inanimate objects, making increasingly irrational decisions, and potentially developing full psychotic episodes complete with hallucinations. But being with other people isn't much better when everyone is traumatized and desperate. You'll witness horrible things that your brain isn't equipped to process. Watching friends get torn apart by zombies, having to kill infected loved ones, making life or death decisions about who gets limited resources, these experiences will fundamentally break your mental processes. Post-traumatic stress disorder will hit everyone within weeks. You'll have flashbacks at the worst possible moments, panic attacks when you need to stay calm, and hypervigilance that prevents you from ever getting adequate sleep. Your judgment will become increasingly impaired as your mental state deteriorates. Sleep deprivation will make everything worse. Quality sleep becomes impossible when you're constantly listening for threats. You'll be operating on 2 to 3 hours of interrupted sleep per night, which causes hallucinations, paranoia, and severely impaired decision-making within days. Depression will set in as the reality of your situation becomes clear. Everyone you cared about is probably dead. Everything you worked for is gone. There's no hope of returning to normal life, and each day is just about surviving until the next day. This isn't temporary sadness. This is soul-crushing despair that makes it difficult to summon the will to keep fighting. You'll develop trust issues that make cooperation with other survivors nearly impossible, but you can't survive alone. It's a psychological catch-22 that most people can't navigate successfully. Resource management. You've seen movies where people find a well-stocked bunker or abandoned store and think they're set for months. In reality, resource management in survival situations is incredibly complex, and most people will make fatal miscalculations within days. First, you have no idea how many calories you actually need. Survival situations require significantly more energy than normal life. Cold weather, physical exertion, stress, and healing from injuries all increase caloric requirements dramatically. That can of beans you think will last 2 meals? It might not even meet your needs for one day. Water consumption becomes critical in ways you've never considered. You need water for drinking, cooking, cleaning wounds, and hygiene. In hot weather or when doing physical work, you can need a gallon per day just for drinking. Finding water is one challenge, but storing and transporting enough water for a group is logistically nightmarish. Ammunition management will get you killed. Movies make it seem like guns solve everything, but every shot you fire announces your location to every zombie and hostile human in the area. You'll burn through ammunition incredibly quickly in actual survival situations, and finding compatible ammo becomes nearly impossible once stores are looted. Fuel for vehicles, generators, and heating becomes a complex puzzle. Gas stations run dry quickly, and gasoline starts degrading after a few months. Propane, diesel, and other fuels all have different storage requirements and degradation timelines that most people don't understand. Medical supplies get used up faster than you'd expect. A simple cut requires bandages, antiseptic, and ongoing care. Larger injuries consume huge amounts of medical resources. Pain medication becomes incredibly valuable, but runs out quickly. Most people will hoard resources inefficiently, carrying too much of some things and not enough of others. They'll prioritize items based on perceived value rather than actual utility. They'll exhaust themselves carrying unnecessary weight while lacking essential supplies. Navigation. Your smartphone has made you navigationally helpless. You probably can't find your way across your own city without GPS assistance, but you think you'll be able to navigate during an apocalypse when all satellite service services are down, most people can't read paper maps effectively. They don't understand topographical maps, scale, or how to use a compass properly. They've never had to navigate by natural landmarks or celestial navigation. When your GPS stops working, you'll be lost within miles of your own home. Navigation becomes crucial in survival situations because getting lost means death. Wrong turns lead you into zombie hordes, hostile territory, or areas without resources. Getting lost in winter weather can kill you in hours. Taking inefficient routes wastes precious fuel and exposes you to unnecessary dangers. Even if you have paper maps, do you know how to determine your current location without GPS? Can you triangulate your position using landmarks? Do you understand how to account for magnetic declination when using a compass? Can you estimate distances traveled on foot across different terrain types? Natural navigation seems simple until you try it. Using the sun for direction requires understanding seasonal variations and time of day calculations. Star navigation requires clear skies and knowledge of specific constellations that change with seasons and geographic location. Both methods become useless in cloudy weather. Urban navigation during an apocalypse is completely different from normal times. Blocked roads, collapsed bridges, and dangerous areas change the entire layout of travel routes. The shortcuts you normally use might be death traps filled with zombies or controlled by hostile groups. You'll waste enormous amounts of time and resources being lost, and every hour spent going in circles is an hour closer to running out of food, water, or fuel. Navigation mistakes compound quickly and can turn manageable situations into fatal ones. Weapon maintenance. Everyone's apocalypse fantasy involves finding some awesome weapons and becoming a zombie-killing machine. Reality check. Weapons require constant maintenance, and you have no idea how to properly care for them. Firearms aren't toys that work forever without maintenance. They need regular cleaning, lubrication, and inspection to function reliably. Use a gun without proper maintenance and it will jam, misfire, or even explode in your hands when you need it most. Do you know how to field strip and clean different types of firearms? How often different weapons need maintenance based on usage and environmental conditions? Ammunition isn't just about having bullets. Different firearms require specific ammunition types, and using the wrong ammo can damage your weapon or cause dangerous misfires. Ammunition degrades over time, especially in poor storage conditions. Moisture, temperature fluctuations, and corrosion can make cartridges unreliable or completely useless. Bladed weapons need constant sharpening and maintenance. A dull knife or sword is not just less effective, it's dangerous to the user. Proper sharpening requires specific tools and techniques that most people have never learned. Edge geometry, sharpening angles, and steel hardness all affect how weapons should be maintained. Even simple weapons like baseball bats or crowbars can break or become damaged with heavy use. Wood splits, metal bends or cracks, and handles come loose. You'll need tools and materials to repair weapons, plus the knowledge of how to make those repairs properly. Environmental conditions will destroy weapons quickly. Rain causes rust, sand and dirt cause mechanical failures, and extreme temperatures affect metal properties. Storing weapons properly becomes crucial, but requires knowledge about moisture control, temperature stability, and proper positioning to prevent damage. You'll also need backup weapons because your primary weapons will inevitably break or get lost. But carrying multiple weapons means more weight, more maintenance requirements, and more complexity in an already difficult situation. Sleep deprivation. Sleep isn't optional. It's a biological necessity that becomes nearly impossible to fulfill during apocalypse survival. The combination of constant vigilance, uncomfortable conditions, and psychological stress will create a sleep deprivation cycle that severely impairs every aspect of survival. After just 24 hours without sleep, your reaction time slows significantly, your judgment becomes impaired, and your immune system starts weakening. After 48 hours, you'll start experiencing microsleeps, brief periods where your brain essentially shuts down for seconds at a time, even when you're trying to stay awake. In survival situations, you can't just find a comfortable bed and sleep for 8 hours. You need to maintain watch schedules, sleep in uncomfortable positions, and wake up frequently to check for threats. Light sleep means you're not getting the deep sleep phases necessary for physical and mental recovery. Temperature control affects sleep quality dramatically. Too hot and you can't fall asleep properly, too cold and you'll wake up constantly. You'll rarely have ideal sleeping conditions, which means you'll never get truly restorative sleep even when you have the opportunity. Stress and anxiety make quality sleep nearly impossible. Your brain will be constantly processing threats and planning survival strategies. Adrenaline from daily survival challenges will keep your nervous system in a state of hyperarousal that prevents deep sleep. sleep-deprived people make terrible decisions. You'll miscalculate risks, miss important details, and react inappropriately to threats. That split-second decision about whether to fight or flee from zombies? Sleep deprivation makes you more likely to choose wrong and die because of it. Hallucinations from sleep deprivation can be deadly in survival situations. You might see threats that aren't there, wasting ammunition and revealing your position. Even worse, you might not see real threats because you're distracted by hallucinations. Group dynamics suffer when everyone is sleep-deprived and irritable. Arguments increase, cooperation decreases, and trust breaks down, all when teamwork is most essential for survival. If you thought all this was insane, the final 3 will make you question everything about your survival knowledge. Trust issues. Survival situations bring out both the best and worst in people, but mostly the worst. The people you'll encounter will be desperate, traumatized, and willing to do whatever it takes to survive. Learning who to trust becomes literally a matter of life and death, and most people are terrible at making these assessments under pressure. Other survivors will lie about their intentions, their resources, and their capabilities. They'll present themselves as friendly and helpful while planning to rob or abandon you when it becomes convenient. That family with children who seems trustworthy, they might be using the kids as bait to lower your guard before adult members of their group attack you. Groups will form alliances with you only as long as you're useful. The moment you become a liability, whether through injury, illness, or resource depletion, they'll cut you loose without hesitation. People who seem loyal and cooperative will turn on you immediately when survival requires it. But paranoia isn't the answer either, because complete isolation means certain death. You can't survive long-term without some form of cooperation with other people. You need others to maintain watch schedules, share resources, and provide backup during dangerous situations. The psychological challenge is determining which people pose genuine threats versus which ones are potential allies. Make the wrong choice, and you're dead. Trust too easily, and you'll be betrayed. Trust too little, and you'll miss opportunities for mutually beneficial cooperation. Information becomes a weapon in survival situations. Other survivors will lie about zombie movements, resource locations, and safe areas to gain advantages over you. They might send you into dangerous situations while avoiding those risks themselves. They might withhold critical information that could save your life because keeping you ignorant serves their interests. Even within established groups, internal conflicts will arise over resource allocation, decision-making authority, and risk assessment. These conflicts often escalate into violence that destroys groups from within, leaving everyone more vulnerable than they were alone. The stress of constant threat assessment will exhaust you mentally and emotionally. You'll become increasingly paranoid and hostile, which pushes away people who might actually help you. It's a psychological spiral that most people can't escape once it begins. Comfort zone. Your entire life has been spent in climate-controlled environments with comfortable furniture, predictable schedules, and immediate access to food, water, and entertainment. This comfortable lifestyle has made you psychologically and physically unprepared for the harsh realities of apocalypse survival. Extreme weather becomes a constant life-threatening challenge. You've probably never spent extended time outdoors in severe cold, heat, or storms. Your body isn't acclimated to temperature extremes, and you don't have the mental resilience to function effectively when physically uncomfortable. Sleeping on hard ground in cold weather will prevent you from getting rest, leading to the sleep deprivation cycle mentioned earlier. You'll spend enormous mental energy just dealing with discomfort, leaving less cognitive resources available for survival planning and threat assessment. Hunger affects your psychology in ways you've never experienced. Missing a meal makes you irritable and unfocused. Going days without adequate food makes you weak, confused, and desperate. True starvation creates a psychological state where rational decision-making becomes nearly impossible. You've never had to make life or death decisions under extreme physical and emotional stress. Your decision-making processes have been developed in low-stakes, comfortable environments. When survival depends on split-second choices while you're exhausted, hungry, and terrified, your comfortable life decision-making skills become useless. Personal hygiene becomes a complex survival challenge that affects both physical and mental health. You can't just take a hot shower whenever you want. Extended periods without proper cleaning lead to skin problems, dental issues, and psychological distress that compounds other survival challenges. Your entertainment and comfort needs will create dangerous cravings that compromise survival decisions. You'll take unnecessary risks to find books, games, alcohol, or other comfort items. You'll waste time and resources trying to recreate familiar comforts instead of focusing on essential survival tasks. The psychological adjustment to a harsh, uncomfortable reality will take weeks or months that you probably don't have. Most people will make fatal mistakes during this adjustment period because they can't adapt quickly enough to their new circumstances under pressure. All your zombie apocalypse planning has been done in comfortable, low-pressure environments with plenty of time to think through scenarios. Real survival situations involve making critical decisions in seconds while exhausted, terrified, and operating with incomplete information. Panic responses will override rational thinking at the worst possible moments. When confronted with immediate threats, your body's fight-or-flight response will flood your system with stress hormones that impair fine motor skills and rational decision-making. You'll freeze when you should run when you should hide, and fight when stealth would save your life. Information overload will paralyze your decision-making processes. In crisis situations, you'll be bombarded with sensory input, competing priorities, and multiple threats simultaneously. Your brain, which is used to processing information slowly and methodically, will simply shut down when overwhelmed. Time pressure creates a psychological state where people consistently make poor choices. That careful zombie apocalypse plan you developed over months of thought, you'll have 30 seconds to execute it while zombies are breaking down your door, and you'll forget half the steps while botching the other half. Risk assessment becomes nearly impossible under stress. You'll either become overly cautious, missing opportunities for escape or resource gathering, or overly reckless, taking unnecessary chances that get you killed. Finding the right balance requires experience with high-stakes decision-making that most people completely lack. Cognitive biases will distort your perception of threats and opportunities. Confirmation bias will make you see what you expect to see rather than what's actually there. Optimism bias will make you underestimate dangers. Availability bias will make recent events seem more likely to repeat than they actually are. Murphy's Law applies especially in survival situations. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong at the worst possible moment. Your backup plans will fail, your equipment will break, and circumstances will change in ways you never anticipated. Operating effectively when everything goes wrong requires mental flexibility that comfortable modern life never develops. Group decision-making under pressure becomes chaotic and ineffective. Everyone will have different opinions about the best course of action. Debates will waste precious time, and competing personalities will create conflicts that compromise everyone's survival chances. If you enjoyed this video and want to see Can You Survive a Zombie Apocalypse in America? Click it now!